Okay, hi everybody. This is my video number 16. Okay, for today's video I'll talk on array in C. Yeah. So you can read from your notes what array is. Yeah, an array is a collection of variables which are all of the same type. It is a grouping of the same data type and referred to by same name. The complete set of values is referred to as an array, while the individual values are called elements. In this simplest form, an array can represent a list of numbers. In C, array can indicated with brackets containing a positive integer constant. So that's what written in your notes. What array is all about. You might not understand what is this at the moment, but let me give you a scenario what happened. Okay, and before we go further on the how to declare, how to give the initial value, and so on and so forth. Now, in normal case, you have been introduced or you have been used how to introduce a variable. I give you an example. If you have, for example, integer variable of num1, num2, and so on. Now, surely you cannot do that, but you have to write, let's say, up to whatever number you want. num10, for example. Okay. Now, in this case, you have to declare one by one. So we have 10 variables here. We have 10 variables. So from num1, num2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10. So we have 10 variables. Now imagine that if you have many variables, it could happen probably up to 100, up to 1,000 variables. So in that case, you have to declare this one by one, right? Up to 1,000, 1 to 100, up to 1,000, or how many variables that needed in the process. But surely, to simplify this, instead of we have 10, we have 100, or we have 1,000 variables. We can make it short by declare only one variable. Yeah, declare only one variable with the same type here, integer. If it float, then float. If integer, integer. If it char, and then it char. Just declare one variable, but we give them a kind of index to it. Okay, I give you an example. So let's say we have num here. So instead of we put num 1 to n, so I can write just num, but put in bracket 1, okay, and I have num 2, and so on, num 10. Okay, so this num is a variable, just a single variable, but it can store up to 10 value. It can store up to 10 value. Each of these we call this as an index or subscript, represent one value. Okay, so that can represent one value, that can represent one value, that it can represent one value. So now instead of you declare a 10 integers, you can just declare one integer, but can store 10 values. You can look at this way. Let's say you have a what we call that cupboard. No, not cupboard. What you call that? Those things. What you call that? So we have a drawer, 2 drawer, second, third drawer, fourth drawer, and so on. So let's call this drawer, you give a name, just name num. Okay, so for each of this drawer can store element. So what we need to do is just name one variable or one drawer or one what you call this thing, the whole thing, those, and then each of those you have a drawer. So this is the idea of array. So that's what we call array. All right, array. So a collection of variables of the same types, a collection of variables of the same type. So that's the general idea what the array is. Now, how to declare and how to give the initial value and so on, we go detail on your notes. All right. So let's look at your notes. How to declare the variable, the array. All right. So this is the way we declare. So array must be declared and defined before they can be used in the program. Yes, that's correct. So this is the how do we declare array? We need type is the integer or character or floats. All right, double float and so on. And array name. So in my previous example, your array name you can use as num. And array size, yeah, array size, how many variable you want? Let's say 10, let's say 20, you can put that. Okay. Other example, you can put name. Yeah, name. In the class, for example, you have list of name. But if you put name here, of course, in this case, the type is char or string. You can put string. All right. So if you go to my example here, if all these are integers, so I can declare that as integer num with 10. But remember that in my case here, I put it 1, 2, 3 up to 10. All right. But in C, the subscript begin with 0. Yeah, the subscript begin with 0. So which means that if I declare this num 10, so we have the variable from num 0, num 1 up to num 9. So we have 10 variables with the same types. Okay, with the same types. Okay, so that's the way we declare the array. How to use it later. Okay, so in your notes here, this is example. Integer days, 7 integer. So declare an array names days that is type integer and has 7 elements. Yeah, 7 elements. So element, in this case, element, this is we call it element. So num 0, num 1, num 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that we call it as a element. All right. So in this example, there's 7. So which means we have 7 elements. So element begin with days 0 up to days 6. So that give you 7 element. Now, this is another example. Yeah, x6. So which means the variable x contain or has 7 element. Okay, so all this example, that the previous example that I talked with one-dimensional array. We will go to the two-dimensional array later on, and we can have up to n-dimensional array if you want. So one-dimensional array is an array that has only a single subscript. So in this case, we have a single subscript here. Single doesn't mean once, but single means we only have one subscript there. A subscript is used to identify the individual element in the array. So we have marks. In this case, we have marks 0, mark 1, 2, 3 up to 6. So that's individual element. Okay. So that's more explanation on the mark. So individual array elements are stored in sequential memory location as illustrated in the table below. So we have mark 0, mark 1, mark 2, mark 3, 7, 4, 5 up to 6. So we note that the first element of the array is 0. So remember that this is a default by the C. So when we want to use variable, remember that we always begin with 0. Set in your mind so that when we assign a variable, we are not misassigned. In that case, if you don't count it, then the variable might give you 0, or it give you a runtime error, because the element that you read is not there. For example, if you consider mark as a 7, where in your mind it begin from 1, then we end up with 8. We end up with 7. Whereas mark 7 is basically not declared. Mark 7 is not declared because we declare only up to 6 only. All right. Okay, so now, so the value here, the array value, the values to the array element can be assigned as follows. So you can define like this, or of course there are much simpler way to do. So we can have numbers 27, number 0. So which means number 0 as a one variable contain the value 27. Number 0 contains 30, and so on. Okay, so if you look at this way, it's like no difference than normal declaration, like normal declaration. But in the normal declaration, you have to remember that we need in this case we have 6, so we need 6 variable, whereas in this case we only use one variable, which is number. Okay, there are many ways to give the initial value to the array. All right. This is the example. How do we initialize the value? You can, okay, so this is one way we declare and we give the initial value. So numbers with bracket without any size there. So this size will depend on how much or how many initial value that you give in. So in this case, what the C will read is that we have look at this example. So numbers is too long. I just use num. So we have num. So okay, yep. So we have num 0 is 2. All right. Num 1 is 6, and so on up to num. How many we have? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So num 4 to give you 30. Okay, so that for that particular example. So we can also do this. All right, if you initialize, we give 5 space or 5, we allocate 5 variable to numbers or 5 element to numbers, but we only give the initial value only 2 of them. So what the compiler C reads as 2 and 6, give it to first two initial numbers, first two subscript. Yeah. So which means num0 is 2, num1 is 6. The rest automatically she will assign 0. Okay, I hope you can follow me. Do we need always to assign value? No, it's not necessarily. All right, you can always have, let's say, just integer num without any initial value, can. So in that case, where does value come from? From the process that we do in our program. Just similar to the normal variable, but in this case we have more value we can put in. Okay, now this is also, we can also do like this. So to initialize the value, okay, in this case we assign the initial value in the declaration parts, whereas in this case we give the initial value during the process or the runtime process. Okay, so for I equal to 0, I less than 100, so you can see salary contains 6 elements, right, where we give the initial value 0 to it. We can do this. Okay, so what happened here is that because we have 4, which we have a loop here, so I will keep on increasing one by one, and for each I they will give the C will give the initial value to salary 0. So what we have, salary 0 up to salary 99, the initial value is 0. Okay. Okay, now in this case, look at the example 6. We have score 5, 6, 66, 89, 75, 100, and 50. This is the initial value for score. That's the initial value. All right. So that's the general form. Yeah, the general form, the syntax for giving the initial values to the array. So type is the integer, char, string, whatever it is, floats, array name, and size, and list of values that you can put. Remember that if without this value, if you put like this, equal to just part of it, so only the first few lists of values will assign to the first couple of array, begin from 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so on. This is another example. This is another example. Another example. All right. Now look at the we look at the operation of this array a little bit here. All right. So what happened here? So with those table 6, yeah, this one. So we have M0 is 18, M1 is 14, M2 is 8, M3 10, M4 4.5, 14, up to 7, 20 here. Okay, with that. So the operation is here. Yeah. If it prints M0, so of course it floats M0. M0 is 18, so it displays 18. So right, display the value of M0, which is 18. So if you put M3 equal to 15, what happened? You have M3 here is 5. Sorry, M3. Where is M3? Here. M3 is 10, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is 10. So M3 10. But we assign another value to it, so it's override those value 10. Now the new value for M3 is 15, not 10 anymore. All right. So the new value is 15. You can always override this value when needed in the programming. Okay. Store the value 15 into in M3. The next sum is M0 plus M1. So M0 is 18 plus M1 14. So that gives you 32. So sum has a value 32. What about this? Sum is equal to sum plus M2. So sum, you have a value 32 from here, old value, and then M2 is 8. So 32 plus 8 is 40. So you have the value is 40. This M3 plus 2, M3, the value is 15 plus 2, that give you 17. Right. And for this, M2 is M0 plus M1. So your M0 is 18, M1 is 14. So 14, 32, then assign to M2. So M2, the value of new value for M2 is 40, not 8 anymore, 40. 18, 14, 32, sorry, 32. Okay. Then array subscript. I have mentioned to you that all this we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All these are subscript to the array. Yeah, subscript to the array. So in this case, where is it? Okay, yeah. So a subscript is used to differentiate between the individual array elements and to specify which array element to be manipulated. Manipulated means we do calculation on it. Okay. Now look at this this example. We see consider with that. Okay. So with that value of array. Okay. Look at this example. Now for I equal to 4, for I equal to 4, print D and F 3 and M3. So at D we will print 3, now the C we print 3, F we print M3. So M3 in this case is M3, what is it? M3 is 10, right? 10, right? So 3 and 10, which is the value of M3. For that, print D, F, I, Mi. So I is 4, because given there I is 4. M4 is, look at your table here, M4 is 4.5. So we print 4 and 4.5. And Mi plus 1, I is 4 plus 1, M4 is 4.5, M4 is 4.5 plus 1, that give you 5.5. For that, print this is invalid. The reason is we cannot do print and with mathematical expression inside there. Yeah. In this case, also invalid. Yeah, invalid. Because the reason is because we have print here. In this case, it's valid. You can do this. So Mi plus 1, I is 4, so 5. So we assign, or we give the value M5 into M4. This is valid. So assign 14, which is value of 5, to M4. So M5 is 14. So we give the value to M4. So instead of, now M4, instead of the initial value 4.5, now has the value 14. Okay. Also this one you can do. This is invalid. Of course you cannot do that one. Okay. This is example of calculate the slope for many different pairs of points given the slope n1 of a line connecting 2 points. So we have 2 points in the xy plane. Example in the xy plane, you have to form the to find the slope. You need the pair of points, 2 pairs of points. So this is pair of point. This is a pair of points. This is another pair of points. So we can find the slope of the equation of the line connecting those 2 points. Yeah, and you can have many. So for example, you can write here. You can connect these 2 line, 2 point. You can connect these 2 point. You can connect these 2 point. So which means each of these line have their own slope, right? Depending on the pair of point that given or that we chose. Now, of course, if we consider this is as x1, y1, this is x2, y2, all right, then the slope is given as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's call this as a slope number 1, and we can have more. Okay, so if you can generalize this, I can write here mi is equal to yi plus 1 minus yi over xi plus 1 minus xi. I can do this. Okay, now this is the, if you want to write the formula for that, yeah, then you see mi as a variable. This is what I've written here, right? So mi, so yi plus 1 minus yi, xi plus 1 minus xi. So just plug in c, then you can see, of course, when you use array, you need for or do while or do or while, yeah. So you need this thing. So mi yi plus 1 minus yi xi minus xi. So where does this yi come from? Where does this value come from? You can give that value. How to give that value? You can use the initial. So you can initialize the value of x and y. So I can do like this. For I equal to, for I equal to 0, I less than or equal to 99, I plus plus, yeah. Then we can give xi you can write scanf. If you want to give through your screen, you can, yeah, scanf with all the appropriate syntax there. Then you can write x I y I. Okay, I think we need this thing. Please correct the syntax. You can always do this. Okay, or you can also give an initial value. So integer, this is another way you can do integer. X, how many? In this case, 100 from 0 to 99. Then give the value to it, which is you put the brackets and so on. All right, and then y 100. Also, what value is that? You can list down there. then you can have xi, yi, then you can plug in there, then you can find the slope for each pairs connecting for each line connecting two pairs of points. Okay, this is an example of processing the array. So I think I give this example in the next video, because it's otherwise the video becomes too big, and my handphone got problem, so I have to stop here. But as a conclusion, what I explain here in this video is that what array is, how to use array, and how important array is. Then we go to the how to declare the array, how to give the initial value to the array, and a little bit of process of the array, but not that detailed. Still, we may go detail in the next example. For example, in this example, I'll give this example in the next video. Okay, so for the moment, thank you.